Alright everyone, it's time for a very, very humorous video here. Chrischristie, link in the description, not archived, just a tweet from the Hill, is considering a 2024 run. But he hasn't made up his mind yet. He's going to tell us in 60 days, he says, whether he intends to run or not. That timing is very, very interesting. Why wait 60 days? Some sea change is going to happen in a 2-month period? Oh, wait. Yeah, it will. And this is why Chrischristie is giving us a delay. DeSantis, according to people supposedly close to him, according to DeSantis allies, is going to make a decision whether he intends to run sometime in May. It could be the middle of May, early May, we're not sure. So roughly 60 days from now would be the end of that time period. It would happen to be the end of May at that point. Chrischristie, in my opinion, is nuts. He's power hungry, corrupt. He's never been someone that I liked. Although some people, it's funny, some Trump fans actually liked him for a while because he endorsed Trump. And after the Marco Roboto incident, that was funny. He did steal the show for an entire news cycle, so we'll give him credit for that. He also stole the news cycle when during the government lockdown, not COVID lockdown, but before that, he decided to exit his political career there by taking his family to a beach that was closed to the public, and they were photographed by helicopter there, and people thought the hypocrisy was very funny, and his polling was down, I believe, in the high 20s at the time. Not exactly a well-liked political figure, and so he doesn't really have a political career. There are some morons out there that are treating him like he's viable. I can get into why he's not. Here's the thing, though. He's waiting to see if DeSantis announces. If DeSantis says, I'm sitting it out, he doesn't want the fight, I think it would be wise for him. Based on the launch of his de facto campaign, it's not going so well. Again, I don't have DeSantis derangement syndrome. If in a fair primary he managed to prevail, I would not take off the table the possibility of voting for him. It's just that I don't have any on-the-job sort of presidential experience to go by like I have with Trump, and so I default to liking Trump more. I've seen Trump walk the walk in that capacity. I've seen a DeSantis who's doing a good job as governor. Let's not mince words, he is. Not perfect, but a good job. And so I don't say, well, I think that DeSantis is corrupt because he might run against Donald. That's not the way that it works, dude. And by the way, if they insult and backhand one another, that's normal. I see people on both sides chuffing at the concept that two people who might be locked in a desperate battle to try to become the next president of the United States, no, they're insulting one another? I've never seen that before, especially from Donald Trump. Anyway, Chrischristie knows two things. If DeSantis gets in, Christie doesn't have a chance, because even if Trump were completely knocked off his pedestal, DeSantis would be the nominee. It wouldn't be Chrischristie. He knows that if DeSantis gets in, his odds of winning are decreased with each new candidate that enters the field. Trump has a hardened core of support somewhere in the upper 50s to lower 40s. Roughly 40% of the GOP is already behind Trump. Only in an effective one-on-one can anyone else hold their ground. You've already got Haley in for what relatively little it's worth, and you've got Ramaswamy for what even more little it's worth. That takes you dangerously close to the point at which Trump can win just with his core fan base. Christie would probably get 5 to 10 points. At least he has some name recognition. He has some core base of support. He'd be pulling it all from DeSantis. And he knows this. And he doesn't want to go on to a situation where the nominee is Donald Trump, who clearly he's burned the bridge with. He gets nothing out of Trump winning. The fact that he's running it all would alienate Trump even further. Christie doesn't want Trump to be the nominee, let alone the general election winner. Chrischristie would probably campaign against Trump if he was the nominee. By the way, a prediction, some of those Republicans will switch parties, or at the very least, in the de facto sense, they will switch parties. But he knows that even though there's an outside chance of a DeSantis nomination, if he chooses not to get in and instead simply endorses DeSantis and campaigns for him, becomes a proxy, in the off chance DeSantis does win, there's at least the possibility of a cabinet position or something. Which, by the way, would be a terrible idea. Hey, Ron, if you do become the nominee, and I don't think that will happen based on your performance in the last week, but we'll keep an open mind, don't choose Christie for a fucking cabinet position. You want to torpedo your campaign, just start appearing with him. This is Chrischristie, who people would like to say, well, he's viable. We had a comically obese president before. It was Taft. Oh, Taft, who is getting campaigned for by the very popular outgoing Theodore Roosevelt, and that's literally the only reason he won. By the way, sad story, Theodore Roosevelt came back and then wrecked the political system in a rage because he thought Taft wasn't doing a good enough job. Taft didn't do exactly what he said like a puppet, and so he decided to run on the Bull Moose platform, and he railed against Taft and made jokes about him that literally made him cry at numerous points. Taft was a sensitive character, not just sensitive about his weight. Chrischristie, again, the dude who violated his own beach closure orders. Yeah, the hypocrite. The one that, again, was in the high 20s at most in popularity. The one who was not even a secondary, but rather a tertiary candidate in the 2016 election, who is literally best known for one-upping Marco Rubio, thus helping Trump. The one that appeared with Trump, praised Trump lavishly, but towards the end of the presidency suddenly said, well, you know, I'm just not in it anymore. The second that Trump left office, all of a sudden Chrischristie turned his back on him. He's convinced that Trump can't win again, and so he's going to do things in such a way that if someone else looks plausible, he's going to get in behind him. He's a coattail rider, Chrischristie. That's all he is. This is why he definitely will not be the nominee. I can tell you that. You're not going to see Chrischristie nominee. You're not going to see Chrischristie president. He doesn't have the charisma. He doesn't have the skills. He doesn't have the attitude. He doesn't have the optics, like literal physiognomy. He just doesn't look the part. He's combative. He's burned the bridge with MAGA. You can't win without at least a significant proportion of that vote being on board. DeSantis, potentially, although he's really hazarding it right now at every possible turn, he could get enough of that vote to prevail in a general. It's possible. There's actually a narrow path forward. There is none for Christie, nor for Nikki Haley, by the way. Ramaswamy is probably more electable overall simply because nobody knows who he is, and because he immediately defended Trump over the indictment shit, than Chrischristie. It's funny, Republicans for years now have been talking about, well, maybe it's Chrischristie's big year. Hey, maybe Chrischristie is our guy. They always consider him, but they never choose him. The poor dude. Let him retire in grace and go do corrupt mafioso-style business shit like former politicians tend to do. Let him work for a craptivistic group. Let him start a bank or something like that. Chris, just go and do something else. Whether DeSantis gets in or not, again, if DeSantis doesn't get in, I suspect Christie will. He'll make the announcement the next day because he's such a fucking coattail rider. And if DeSantis does get in, then he'll immediately endorse him probably. That's his MO. He'll get in if the DeSantis isn't there because he thinks, well, I'll be the TDS candidate. Yay, I got 20. He'll consider it a victory if he breaks into the double digits and isn't just an also-ran like he was in 2016. Part of it is, if DeSantis isn't there, Chrischristie does good at one thing, getting attention. And so he thinks, I guess he thinks he can out-attention Trump. It'll be funny to see. I hope he does get in. I hope I'm wrong and DeSantis and Christie both get in. That way you have not a packed field, but at least there's some energy there. There's something for Trump to lash out at, which will be extra funny as well. That's about all. Peace out.